he is a specialist in failure. I'm not.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever Specialist in Failure podcast. If you're looking for a podcast on someone's failures, I'm afraid you've come to the wrong place, although the boot might fit. We are just three football crazy lads, sick of lazy media coverage, love giving their opinion and want to go up breaking the world of football and put it in its rightful place. This is the After Hours news show. My name is Reece. The managers based around the quote in the name are two European powerhouses, and I needed two European powerhouses of my own, but sadly none were available, so I've dragged these two in. First off, I will start with the man wearing the very fitting pyjama top. It is Callum Emerson. Hello.
I'm trying so hard not to swear at you right now.
I think that's people's general feeling towards me anyway. Yeah. But I'm sure that will increase.
What? Just trying not to swear. Yeah, just trying not to swear at you.
Depends how bad his opinions are. To be fair.
But yeah.
But
depends how bad yours are.
Great to get this started, isn't it?
It's great to have with me on this journey. I've listened to many of your opinions, so I thought I'd have forced them on other people.
No. You do that anyway, so this is just a bit of a wider audience as well. So
exactly, more people get to see it. Although Callum's constant begging did help him become a partner, which is a sign to all the lonely men out there. Begging works. And on the subject of lonely men, I think it's time to introduce my next guest and host. It's my other partner in crime, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dan King.
Well, I mean, I would say it's a pleasure, but I mean, it doesn't feel like it, considering I've been introduced as a lonely man. I mean, he's not wrong, but it's quite the introduction. I'll say that.
Well, you're welcome for that. I'm sure people get to know that we're just three lonely, bordering on alcoholic, football-obsessed people.
Reece, we're not in therapy. We're here to talk about football. Let's get on with it.
Yeah, you're right. Let's get on with it. And we're going to start, as we always will on the news show, with takeaways, which is essentially our hot takes. I'm gonna kick off with Dan. Dan, what's your hot take for this week?
Well, it's less of a hot take recently, but it's the I'm quite an advocate for effective football rather than like making football look pretty. So, say for example, Reece put out a poll a couple of weeks ago. It was: would you rather support a Crystal Palace team under Roy Hodgson, which finishes 10th, or a Leeds team under Marcelo Bielsa, sorry, that would finish 14th or 15th in the table? And I'd argue, I wouldn't stop arguing that I would have Roy Hodgson every day of the week, because football can look as good as you want, but at the end of the day, it's the results game. And if you're getting the results, I'd much prefer grind out a 1-0 result than a 4-3, because I'd say there's so many more positives in that. In a 1-0, so it's a clean sheet, it's a morale booster, it shows grit. It was a 4-3, it's a bit all over the place, I guess. And it can work against teams like Liverpool. So at the beginning of the season, first game of the season, it was a really good performance for. I think it surprised almost everyone. Not that they were attacking. I think that was expected, but how in the game they were, and I guess that's where it can work and I guess affect it. But you got to think about a manager which ended up getting a win.
Because as a football fan, as a football fan, obviously it's nice to watch, sexy, attractive football. But if it's not getting you the points, then it's literally worthless. But so as a football fan, I'd rather watch drag out like a 1-0 win rather than us playing tiki-taka, passing it, pinging it.
Yeah, because it can be painful to watch at times. It can be painful to watch at times, but It's in the end you're getting Hoyers in. As I said, it's a results game, and whether it's less enjoyable to watch or not,
if we were talking Burnley when they reached the Europa League, I think I could level with you. But the poll I put out was if they finished 10th or 15th. Now, if I, as a Premier League supporter, know I'm getting a mid-table team next year, so not so much your Villas and your Evertons, but your Leeds, your Palaces, even your Burnleys.
Yeah.
10th isn't an achievement particularly. 15th isn't an achievement particularly. I just think I love to enjoy my football, and it's a hard balance, I agree, but I think Leeds' task at the start of the season was stay in the Premier League. I think they're going to stay in the Premier League quite easily. Palace's task was stay in the league. If you ask me which way I'd rather it done, it is absolutely with the chaos under Bielsa.
Oh yeah, I'd say this isn't, given how obviously when I talk about I'd prefer say effective football in terms of Roy. I maybe less so the way they've done it this season, because I'd say it's effective. They play effective football, but it's not been effective this season. Obviously I know that Wilfried Zaha has been. He's had his best season yet, but he's been no, I wouldn't say carrying them, but there's only been him and a few others that have major impact in the team. Yeah, he's been there. He's been in the headlines for them on the whole season, as per usual. Even more so this season. And when he hasn't been, it's been poor. But if I'm talking about purely, if you're going to guarantee a 10th place or guarantee 15th place, I'd go with Roy. And when you lose, it's going to be a bit more painful. I think as Stevenage fans, we know that. Having to obviously with us having to grind out results a lot of the time, because we can't play the most attractive football in the world. So when we do manage to grind out results, play okay football, but when it works, and it's just that bit more satisfying rather than. I'd say maybe as an outsider, I'd probably prefer watching a Leeds team, 1,000,000%.
Sorry, you don't.
I think as management and players, you're looking at the Roy team, but in terms of supporting, I just would rather not, because of the size of the club taking everything away, even taking the certain players away. For example, I'd rather watch Zaha and Eze than Jack Harrison and Rodrigo, as good as Rodrigo is, by the way. But I'd rather have, when you're finishing in those positions, we said it at the start of the season as Stevenage fans, when the task is stay up, make us have a team to be proud of, make us enjoy our football again after all this. I know as a person, I'd enjoy that Leeds team, whether we're losing 6-2 at Old Trafford. Okay, they're probably not enjoying the small results that's got them, and I think there's different factors, but like the pitch and stuff. But I know all Leeds fans are buzzing right now. Crystal Palace fans aren't, so it's a hard balance. But
I'm just talking about when it's most effective. So when it works, when effective football works, yes. But obviously Roy Hodgson has been. Well, some of his lineups have been really questionable. They've had one shot. I think they've had one shot on target in the last 4 games. I think that's them. I think it's Palace. They've only had one shot on target in the last few games. Yeah, but as far as I'm aware, it may be another team, but they've been really poor recently. And obviously, I'm just talking about purely if it works, it worked. If it doesn't work, and I guess I can see the argument of effective football, or not effective, sorry, of pretty football. It can work. The majority of the time, there's not. Obviously, it can go wrong, but you'll always have that backup. Say if you go out of form, you'll always have that bit of flair, which I can understand. But if we're talking purely if it can work, and that's a blanket statement, then I'd go with that 100%.
Yeah, it's a topic we could go on for a whole podcast about. I think
we could go on for hours.
the first hot take. Callum, you're
Yeah,
up next. What is your take?
So, this is probably something that we're probably going to go in quite a bit more depth in later on. But mine is, I believe that Werner is still the best choice striker for Chelsea because, well, this is because I've sort of like stabbed myself here because this is something that I'll probably be repeating myself a bit later on. But he's still got like because I was looking up earlier, he's still got like 11 goals across all competitions. I know that's not amazing considering his price tag, but
Yeah, considering his record as well.
I think it's 80% down. I'd say 80% down to the formation that he's been given with. I think I'll mention this again later, but if you give him you give him a player with like Giroud, because they're both, I see them as both sort of like target men, and
I guess in different ways, yeah.
And I do honestly think that Werner can benefit of something like that because there will be supply, and if Giroud doesn't get it, well, Werner's popping up there, and I think there's sort of a confidence issue with it at the moment because he's gone a couple of games, not really minus the last FA Cup game. He's a player, as soon in the last FA Cup game he scored a goal.
He scored.
Yeah. But no, honestly, I think it's partially down to confidence as well because the English league, it's always been said, it's a more physical league. It's one where you actually have to fight for the point, fight for the goals instead of shoving in 7 or 8 goals against farmers every week. So I think it's partially got to get used to that level. I'm not saying he's only scored against bad teams because he plays in the German league against the likes of Dortmund, Bayern Munich. But I do think he's got the quality to be in this league.
Yeah, sorry. I think he gets assumption of 50 million when he must settle in straight away, whereas other signings like, there's a bedding in period for Ziyech. When you're a £50 million signing striker linked with Liverpool in the summer, who were the best side in the country, best side arguably on the planet as well, you're immediately expected to perform, and when the Chelsea side is as dysfunctional as it is, Werner's been misused, there's no doubt about that. We'll go into that a bit later, but you look at him now, you look at the chances missing, well, a lot of them he's leaning back, like we're told from 10 years old, don't lean back when you hit the ball, and when you finish in, and there's ones where he's trying to take the shot.
You get your head over it. Yeah.
Sometimes he's leaning too far. It's just he's lost control of the basics.
He's snatching out a lot. He's snatching out a lot of shots as well. With his chances, I know obviously he's a volume striker, but who isn't? And I know he's being played out position a lot of the time. I get that. Well, yeah, Haaland's an exception. Yeah, Haaland's an exception, but with the amount of chances he's had, especially that one, I think it was against Leeds where he kicked it against the crossbar. At first it looks like good goalkeeping, but he's just got straight under it. I think he's tried too hard to score. If he just puts his foot through it, he scores. It's been unbelievable. So we know he's better than that, and I do personally, I wouldn't say it's 80% of its positional. I'd say maybe a 50-50 between his head and position, maybe less, but the head's the biggest enemy of football, and I'd say that's probably played a massive part to it because I think he knows he's better. He knows the world's expecting 20 goals, 25 goals a season for him, and he's clearly under the pressure, it seems.
But I do think, honestly, I will, as I said, this is something we're going to get into a bit later in the episode, but I still believe that it's down to just the tactics of Lampard, I think, as I said, something we're going to get into later. I do agree with like your points, on like, the big, it's all in the head, And I guess, when a striker goes, a certain amount of time without scoring a goal, they're probably going to be thinking like, what's happening? Oh, I'm never going to score again. I highly expect that he's seen at least a few of the comments that have been said about him.
Well,
yeah, like I think this goes on to a separate point that if I was a professional footballer, would I have an account that I personally went on? No. Would I search my name? Would I do my best to avoid it? Yeah, I would. I know it's incredibly difficult about it or see people talk about it, and that's just.
Yeah, but then again, it could just be your curiosity getting the better of you.
It's curiosity. It's the biggest enemy, one of the biggest enemies as well. That can't be doing any good either.
Especially when fans aren't in grounds, you're not getting general vibe really. This is the last point I'm going to make on this because we probably need to move on to the next one. But Timo Werner was signed for Chelsea because his name is Timo Werner. He wasn't signed because he suited Chelsea. It's quite clear to see that. Anyone who watched Leipzig last season knows that Werner played off the big man. He played off a target man and he made quite direct runs. They knew he was in a left winger. I think it's fair to say Werner is better than Tammy Abraham and he is better than Giroud. Giroud is obviously more effective in the 4-3-3, but as we'll get into later, Chelsea shouldn't be playing the 4-3-3. So I have no doubt it will come for Timo Werner. He's hit the crossbar 5 times this season. If those go in, I know it's easy to say if those go in, but it's that kind of thing.
It's a different story. If they do.
We're still fairly big fans of Timo. My hot take. I've gone abroad to Spain. They're actually currently 1-0 up. So
in the lockdown, disgusting.
They're actually currently 1-0 up. So my point feels a little invalidated. But my point is about Real Madrid at the minute, and it's essentially that they're in as bad a place as Barcelona at the minute. Obviously, there's massive problems with Barcelona at the minute, although they are improving. In terms of Messi, in terms of the presidency, they have no money, that kind of thing. And then you look at the Real Madrid situation at the minute. They've got David Alaba coming in. There's no doubt in my mind David Alaba is a top class footballer. He's unbelievable. But why is he coming in? I don't quite understand it. This season, Real Madrid have gone with Ramos and Varane, as you would. Real Madrid, and I know there's been talk about this because they refused to offer him a 1+1, which is incredible. Real Madrid and Ramos are in contract deadlock. Real Madrid cannot afford to be without Sergio Ramos. He is almost in that Messi Barcelona bracket because Modric is set to leave and sign a 1-year contract and leave. Kroos probably declining. Sergio Ramos is still okay. He's declined defensively. If he was any good defensively in the first place is a debate in itself. But he is a winner. If you lose that is incredible. But why would Sergio Ramos stay if he's not starting? He starts for every other team in the world.
Yeah.
Then
I guess they've had immovable. I don't think either of those centre backs are movable. And from what I've seen, their left back Mendy, he's been improved recently. From what I've seen,
he's outstanding.
He's been better.
He's replaced Casemiro is beyond me. And then you go into Real Madrid's front three. They still can't bin Bale off. If Spurs want to buy Bale, is another matter. It's not out of the possibility, but
not many teams are going to want to buy him though. With the release clauses that they have in Spain, no one's going to want to buy him.
So Bale's not there.
With at that money, I don't think anyone will. He'll just be taking a wage.
Benzema.
But in comparison to Barcelona, how would you say that Real Madrid are in a similar situation? Are you just talking on the pitch? Does that mean?
I think Real Madrid. Real Madrid on paper have the better team by far. But if they played, if there was an El Clasico tomorrow. I'd back Barcelona all the way, and I think Real Madrid are in not even a steady decrease. It is a dramatic decrease because you've got Hazard not performing, Vinicius injured all the time, Benzema's getting old, Kroos is getting old, Modric is getting old, Ramos is annoyed, Varane's not performed at his peak, and you've got to replace these players. And
do you think that the decline it's been going on since Ronaldo left the club? Because I can see that they've probably built a squad around Ronaldo, because arguably one of the best players in the world in history. What do you think about that?
I think in some ways Real Madrid become a better team, and I know it's Ronaldo's selfish. Well, he wasn't, but in the way Benzema stepped up was unbelievable. Benzema basically dragged Real Madrid to a title last year. He was unbelievable. Real's transfer.
No one expects him to. Obviously,
Real's transfer policy since Ronaldo is probably the reason why. I think the only one that steps out and I can say, yeah, he's done well, is the left back Ferland Mendy, who, in my opinion, is the one that's going to get replaced by Alaba. And when you watch Real Madrid at the moment, I've watched a few of the games, that it should be quick. Look at their team; it should be quick, snappy football. And Zidane's under massive pressure again because he's.
And you see Real Madrid, and you see wow football, the Galacticos, they're winning everything. You just don't see that this season. I think from the very limited games I've seen this season, against the 2 games against Shakhtar and how they've been in the Champions League, that's a decline in itself. Regardless of how they're doing in the league, they're behind Atletico, who are a bit unbelievable this season. With obviously a few games, Atletico a few games in hand of them as well. But even if like Barcelona win their game in hand, so they're only 3 points off. So I can see why you're putting them in the same bracket, because they're not the same winners that they were before. It just doesn't.
Real aren't winners anymore.
They're getting old. The players are getting older as well. Because I know you can say about Ramos, he's still at the top level, but he's still getting on, isn't he? He's still getting on. Any sort of niggly injury or whatever that could.
I honestly think next season there will be more of a crisis in Real Madrid, because you look at Barcelona's team and you see the future fatty.
There's a bit of a transition.
I don't think it will necessarily be under Ronald Koeman, but there is the foundations there. The foundations aren't there with Real Madrid, so I'm very concerned about them. I think Zidane has one more year. I think he needs to win the Champions League or La Liga. But the thing with Real Madrid is they win when they need to. It doesn't matter how. Atlanta will not be an easy game for them. Atlanta are dangerous. On to the headlines. On to the main chunk of the show. We took a lot of time on our hot takes. Very controversial. Newcastle are currently 2-0 down to Aston Villa. They are in free fall. There was an interesting Monday night football piece by Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, and that team in the week, talking about their decline, about how it's been coming, about the comparison with Rafa and Bruce. Dan, it's a very simple question, but an almost impossible one to answer, so I'm going to throw it to you. Why were Newcastle happy with Rafa and they're not happy with Bruce?
It's hard to tell, really. I guess this is another case of, say, effective football not working. If I'm honest, because he'd done all right with them last season. You see, they finished decently high in the league.
6 at the back against Sheffield United.
Better than their squad. Better than their squad said, like 13th. If you look at Newcastle's squad last season, would you put it anywhere above 15th? I don't think you would. So I can see why they were happy last season. But
they wasn't. If you looked last season with
they
Bruce,
weren't fantastic.
They were still unhappy with football. And I think the thing is, they always said our luck's going to run out, our luck's going to run out, our luck's going to run out. And they said, you're still winning games.
And now it has.
Now the luck's run out. They're not getting the...
I do think, though, with Newcastle, I think they're a club. I think they should be much bigger than what they are.
They are a big
in
club.
terms of like
they are a very big club.
On the pitch, they should be. They're a club that they've got an owner, I believe, that if he actually wanted to, he could give the financial backing. They could probably with the money they've got, they could sign players. But I don't think that, because I don't think they have the attraction. Like,
no, they don't. I was just going to say that they're not an attractive club to sign for anymore, are they? Even an Everton or a Leicester, who would you prefer to go to at the moment?
Yeah, but I think that partially because obviously the football's getting worse now. I think that's having more of a negative effect on how the fans are feeling towards the club. But I think it's all started from the owner, because he's always failed to invest, always spending.
He's been very controversial over the years.
Having Newcastle as a little side pet that he doesn't actually care that much about. And I think Newcastle fans deserve much better than what they're getting. But
No, go on, Carl.
Yeah, so going back to the start, you were saying, like, why were Newcastle fans, not angry at, Benitez, but angry at Bruce? Because I watched that Monday Night Football clip, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher comparing, and when Gary Neville he brought up the stat of like where Newcastle were after 17 games, and league positions, they're generally better off under Bruce. And that did get me thinking, like, why are they? And Gary Neville made a very good point. It was because Rafa Benitez, he's been around and won nearly every competitive trophy you can when he's been at clubs. Because I do think that Rafa Benitez is, I don't know if world class is a push, but
it's always been an elite level manager.
That level of a higher manager, the one you'd look at and say, yeah, he's a great in management, I'd say.
Yeah, but yeah, honestly, I do think that the off the pitch fiasco that's been going on for years is definitely taken over.
It's taken its toll.
It's definitely the main reason for the fans' anger. And as I said, I agree with them. But it gets to a point, like, well, what can you do with when you've got a manager who's performing about the same as the one you like, and you're giving one of them giving the other. You have to draw a line somewhere.
I think it's a sense of ambition, because with the Steve Bruce team, you stay afloat with it. You don't really do too much. You just get on with it. You do what Newcastle do nowadays, but with Benitez team, you see a bit more of a winner in there. You see someone who can kick their team on and just do good things for them. I know maybe he didn't have the best record. Maybe obviously Bruce had a better record, but you can see some ambition in there. If you have Benitez, it's obviously, and you look at Newcastle, Rafa Benitez. You say, oh, Steve Bruce. Yeah, it's not a wow factor either. So
wow.
It's
just not the same.
Of course, Cal says that. The thing with Newcastle had hope with Rafa Benitez. Well, we're going to get these new owners. Obviously, the owner issue broke down. Newcastle team under Benitez was awful. Rondon, Perez, all these. You've got to consider. He didn't want to give Benitez money, but the second he left, Alain Saint-Maximin walked through the door. A brilliant footballer. Joel Linton for £40 million. £40 million. Callum Wilson's coming. Ryan Fraser's coming. Jamal Lewis has come in. These are good players. And people will go, but Wilson's not scoring. If you watch Bournemouth, he thrives off service. He's not getting any as the lone man up top. Jamal Lewis looks bad on
Yeah.
defensive
Yeah,
situations.
recently
Well,
not
we
been.
played for Norwich. Norwich attacked games and then
Yeah.
he could push up. And then, it's just
It just seems that the Newcastle players,
It-
they don't seem motivated
hope
to
is
like, you know,
if you
attack.
are
Plus,
playing
they don't seem to
six,
suit the system they're playing. They're saying, "Oh, he's a good player. Let's sign him." Not actually putting some thought about it. Because if you
Yeah.
see Jamal Lewis, if you see him last season, you say, "Is it Newcastle?" No, you wouldn't see him at
Yeah.
Newcastle, would you?
Yeah.
You'd see him more at a Leicester and Everton. He just fits so much more. And I think that's why.
Yeah.
Who was the other Norwich defender? It was the centre
Aaron's.
back. Um,
Aaron's?
no, it wasn't Aaron's. It was. I'm not
Godfrey.
too sure, but the one at Everton. I
Godfrey.
know Godfrey. There you are. I know he's a centre back. Obviously, he's going to have more defensive duties. But that's a team that you'd see it as in they're a bit quicker. They're not as sit back and
They have a plan.
Yeah.
park the bus. They don't park the bus.
Grab games for the horns.
I
Yeah.
can't watch.
Yeah, they go for games.
I can't watch. No, I watch all different sorts of football. I watch Stevenage, for crying out loud. I flat out refuse to watch Newcastle these days. And the sad thing is, I think a lot of Newcastle fans are in the same place. There's no
Yeah.
game plan
But
going into games, and the
do you
main
think-
difference between Bruce and Benitez is Bruce. This has happened to Bruce throughout his whole career. This is what Bruce does. And whether it's got success or it hasn't, this is what Steve Bruce has done. Benitez has been this world elite level manager. There's hope when the takeover comes in, and I think some people still have that hope, but there's no connection with the team, despite it being a better team. There's no intention to go in the game. They're not going. I don't think they're going out to get point in terms of just get a point, but I think they're just going out there and going, could get a point here. And for example, against the Man Cities and the Liverpools, they're playing 10 men at the back. Well, they're world-class teams. They are going to find them spaces, and I feel sorry for Newcastle fans. I think Newcastle was probably the most hardest club to support in the minute, because the fans don't like the manager, fans don't like the team, the fans don't like the owner doesn't like the club, the owner wants to sell the club.
Toxic relationship all round, and
Does this season do Newcastle stay up? Yes or no?
I think they'll sack Bruce at some point. Because
But who
as
do they
much
bring
as probably Steve McLaren again, knowing Mike Ashley.
Yeah.
I just think there's enough in the squad. And I know he said that about Bournemouth last year, but I look at the other teams, and we'll come on to those in a minute. But it's
Sheffield United.
they do have enough, because they are scratching points, but Newcastle are in a downfall. It is the false promises. It's the wanting the minimum outlay. It's selling the prized assets. It's the lack of investment. They just want a team to be proud of. They're not asking for much, but I think they'll be okay. But that's not a question we should be asking.
I guess that's what they were against.
That's not a question we should be asking with Newcastle United.
You'd think top half team,
The
wouldn't you?
thing is,
If Newcastle.
There's two ways that any team can go. Let alone Newcastle, if they're starting poorly, they can certainly get the rocket up the backside. Start actually getting motivated from the ball. Getting good positions, because let's face it, they're like attacking. Going
you need
forward.
people to drag you through games as a relegation side. Newcastle have those players. Whether they use them is a different matter. But I think
but they don't seem motivated. They don't seem motivated to drag them through the game.
That is why I'm saying the management change might bring something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it'll be a good manager, but the motivation.
Unless it's Steve McLaren.
Yeah, maybe not Steve McLaren, but in terms of teams going down, Sheffield United look doomed. They've now won, obviously against poor Newcastle team, but still. West Brom look doomed. They've now won. Is there anyone that looks certain to go down for you? Is there any teams who's in this relegation fight still for you?
I'd still say I'd still say Sheffield United to go down. I would say I'm going to stick with West Brom because I know obviously that they have had a slight upturn since, and they have picked up a win. Slight upturn since obviously Big Sam's been in charge, and that's what he does. But I just don't think it'll be enough. I think I'm not sure. I just don't think it's enough to stay up. But Fulham, personally, I think if they can turn those draws into wins, they'll be fine. And they've conceded very little recently, and their defense was always their problem. So if they turn those losses into wins, they'll stay up. If they can't, if they can't turn the draws into wins, keep drawing. I don't see. I'd see the relegation zone staying how it is, but I wouldn't rule Newcastle out, Palace out.
I think that's the main difference between a team like Fulham and Newcastle for me. Fulham have plans going into games. They impress the opposition. Teams find it difficult against Fulham. Teams find it difficult against Newcastle because they have 6 men at the back. So it's that kind of thing.
It's difficult for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Cal, for you, who's doomed? Who looks decent to stay up?
I think the West Brom will stay up. I'm just like,
You think
the thing is, like Dan mentioned, they're getting the draws and they're not getting the wins yet. But at the end of the season, them draws, that could be the defining factor.
Oh yeah, that could be. Those sort of draws with those teams could be big.
In a relegation battle, every point you can get a hold of matters. And I think because there's that there's always that mentality like, you can always call on Big Sam to come in and save you from relegation. And I think that mindset's there, and there's already like a sort of belief.
I can see that. I can see that.
There's already that sort of belief. Oh, we're going to stay up now. We've got
Big Sam has that.
Obviously, the players shouldn't have that belief. Yeah, he comes with a reputation, and as I said, recent upturning performances and form.
West Brom have the players to drag them through games. You look at Pereira, who's next level quality. Then you look at Grant, who's a good finisher, and then you look at these players at the back who was going to be solid because they're managed by Big Sam. We see Ajayi, these kind of players, and seeing small things where you're going, Big Sam's doing what he does, and we are fans of Big Sam on this podcast, clearly.
Big Sam.
I think that tells you enough about who we support.
This is how it is.
About what we've been through as well.
And I hate to enhance that image about what we're about to say, but Brighton, Dan, I know you have a few thoughts on Brighton.
Realised how low they were. I didn't realise how they are near enough in the relegation fight. But obviously, I see a lot of people say they play really good. That they play some really attractive football, and one of the cases of pretty football not working. That it's just it doesn't. It's not work when it works. When it works, it works. I can see flashes. There are flashes of good in there, but they just seem too sloppy.
We like players like Basuma, and I think they need to play more Pascal Gross, whose transgression levels are beyond ridiculous, but it doesn't quite fit in the system. When I've talked about players so far that drag you through games, I'm not sure who Brighton have. I know people say Mopai, but
there's Trossard stands out, and obviously Percy Tau coming in he seems to have a slight influence already, but I don't think it's not a player you'd look at and drag through the game. And I don't think Morpay with his track record, I don't think his track record of his obviously having a bit of an ego, which it can work in good, it can work in good, it can work well, and it can work badly. And I think it's not a player. It works badly when you rely on him heavily because he's one that I'd say is quite hot-headed. So if something goes wrong and all the pressure's on him, he could snap and just all go wrong. So I think they're not exactly safe either, and I do think they're in more danger than people think.
We've spent quite a bit on the relegation subject, but I'm going to ask one question. I need 3 teams from both of you. Dan, 3 teams, no words, teams.
Oh,
I
I
like
need to
this.
look at the league. I already knew what I had in my mind, and I still need to look at the. I still need to look.
I'll go. I think Sheffield United are still doomed. I think they went into the season thinking they could stick with the overlapping wing-back system. Brewster hasn't quite worked how we thought he might. Ollie McBurney hasn't been quite as effective, and for me, they just look a little lost because they're not used to a system.
It's not. Yeah,
that isn't using those wing-backs. That O'Connell injury at the start of the season was. I'll go with Brighton, and I'm gonna cancel myself out. From what I said earlier,
Who you actually saying?
I'm going to say Newcastle. Unless something changes right now, Newcastle, Sheffield United, Brighton, Newcastle for me at this moment in time.
I thought you said no words, just teams. Those were a lot of words.
Dan, just
no,
teams.
I've got
sorry. Sorry, you are the host. Sorry, sir.
Good.
Right, I would. That's going to be taken out of context. I will be saying Sheffield United. I think Brighton will have Brighton, and I'm going to go again. I'll go back on my. I'm going to go back on my word, and I think the West Brom will go down.
Can't.
So I'll change my mind. I'll change my mind on Fulham. I think they'll be okay.
Sheffield, Newcastle, Fulham.
That's what I wanted, Dan.
Fair enough.
What I needed. That's what I want, Cal. From the bottom of the league to the top of the league. Well, not the top of the league anymore, rather. From the
somewhat top of the league.
From the bottom of the league to
the top.
The former champions. Well, the champions. Liverpool are 5 games without a win. They lost 1-0 to Burnley.
6 points off top.
Gone. 6 points off top. No goals against people who aren't still wetting their trousers when they go to school. What on earth is going wrong at Liverpool, Dan?
I think we discussed it a bit last night, actually, kind of in prep for today. I'm not sure. I think you made a good point that they've had the same core for 3.5 years, 3.5 seasons, sorry. And it wasn't going to work forever. It was a combination of the pressure on players having to perform consistently. I think a couple of the injuries to big names didn't help, and I'd say less so. I also think that Van Dijk was less important than they thought because their defense hasn't exactly been that big of an issue recently either. Relying on that front four to score goals constantly, and I think they're missing Jota massively because it's a different body in there who's close to their quality. Pressure of putting those attacking players, the same ones over and over and over. I think something's finally cracked, and I think they went a couple games without scoring and thought, "Oh God, what's going on?" And they'd be questioning themselves. And I think this is a mental issue.
I'll tell you what, I disagree with your point on Van Dijk.
So do I.
Because I think I don't think there'd be in this issue if he wasn't out injured anyway. I think because the thing with Van Dijk, he's a brilliant defender, but he can also attack as well. He can bring the ball forward as well, and it's not that he has scored a fair few goals.
Yeah, he's always a danger from corners, so I get that actually. You know what?
I generally do think that he's generally probably like one of the, if not the best player at Liverpool right now.
Even if they had a better backup centre back, because I mean, I know the one that didn't get injured.
I'm not saying that Liverpool are doomed without Van Dijk.
Oh yeah. I'm just saying. I think it's less of an effect than people think. It's less of an effect than it was made out to be.
Oh yeah.
Virgil means the fullbacks are further deeper and they're not making the same runs they used to. It means Trent is crossing from deeper. It means he's crossing 22 times a game. And one successful cross out of those 22 is poor. But at the end of the day, Fabinho not being in that midfield is the biggest loss to Liverpool's midfield. I'm not saying that Henderson and Thiago aren't big losses, etc., but Virgil van Dijk was putting the balls into Mane and Salah. Remember the goal against Bayern Munich? Everyone can push up. Matip doesn't do it. Phillips doesn't do it. Phillips is more your head it, kick it, centre-back. Phillips was meant to go out on loan.
That's why I disagree with you, because Matip's a good transitioning centre-back, I'd say, because he dribbles. He's a lot better on the ball than people give him credit for, because he does make those runs. He does make a lot of those runs with transitions.
Virgil van Dijk is a destroyer. If he's running at you, you're still scared. And I know he's not the leader, but he is a different type of leadership. And Virgil clearly is that voice in the back line that's telling you need to go there.
He's head and shoulders above. He's a player you can look for and think and get strength from. They were performing without him. That's my point. Yes. They were performing well without him. And it seemed to be that injury to Jota was when it all went to shite, pretty much. That's my argument, is that they were able to play without him there, so they didn't need him. That's my point. That's why I'm arguing it, because
sometimes it takes a while to almost feel a loss. So the Van Dijk thing is huge. That is one point. Another thing is momentum. Van Dijk's not in the changing rooms. Van Dijk's not in the dressing rooms. Van Dijk can't have a whisper in Salah's ear. And these players have been together 3-4 years. It's going to happen, unfortunately. And you look at the famous Fergie teams at United, they refreshed every 3-4 years. Liverpool's peak, for me, wasn't last season when they won the title. It was the season before.
It was the season before, yeah.
And when you've played so well, won the Champions, you need to start refreshing. And there was a point made on a radio station I won't mention because I don't want to give them airtime. They were mentioning, why did Liverpool need Thiago? Does he really fit? And I was going, that's ridiculous. Thiago's world class. And then I started thinking deeper about it. Liverpool's peak, they were scary. They were fast. They were running at you. They could have anyone missing, and you go, and you look at them and go, oh, Jesus. Last season, and this season, I'd happily admit, I'm bored watching Liverpool. I'm just, it's not.
I haven't wanted to watch their last few games. It's not heavy metal football anymore. It's scraping results. It's getting by.
Thiago's picking it up and deploying these passes. These players aren't used to these passes, so it takes a while. And Callum, almost Klopp made a point in the week. We're almost looking at a challenge for the top 4 at the minute. Do you think that's true, or do you think that's manager tactics? Do you think Liverpool genuinely are in a top 4 race rather than a title race?
You've got cases for both sides. You can say they're still in the title race because they're how many points? They're not too many points.
Yeah, it's not too far. They're not too far off.
But people are catching up as well now, and I think Liverpool. I think they're still in the title race. But they've got one hand on that ladder. I think if they don't improve, results, I'm not saying change tactics overnight as a snap of a finger, but something needs to happen. Whether that's the Klopp having a serious look at his tactics, starting lineup, because I think Liverpool have probably been figured out. Yeah, I think that they either need to change something, or they need to get their mojo back, because that's what they did a couple of years ago.
It could be a simple issue as that. In all fairness, it could be. And obviously, I know we've got the injury problems, but it could be as simple.
They're that good.
Yeah, I still see Liverpool in the title race, but if results don't change in the next few weeks, I might see them differently.
The thing is, I know we're saying they haven't made that signing to refresh it. I guess that more pushes my point about Jota, because it's not one that will completely change them. Obviously, he had more of an impact than we thought, but it's just a refresher. It's someone so you don't have to bring a Origi on.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
he played one of his better games. I don't like to be too harsh on players, but I haven't. He's almost tarnished his cult hero legacy, which was in the Champions League at the other season,
Yeah.
and I think he arguably wasn't great last season, and I personally think that he should have been binned. He should have been binned in the summer. If I'm perfectly honest, he was poor, and he was poor in almost every aspect. Whether he's played out wide, down the centre, I get.
Origi's an impact striker, so he's coming onto the ball rather than having to do things with the ball. And now Liverpool's style has not changed dramatically, but it's no longer heavy metal intense. It doesn't suit him as much. Liverpool have zero interest in entering the market in the final week, according to reports. Is that a good move? No signings this month for Liverpool.
No, whether it's on loan or not, they needed to get a centre back in. I know I said they sent Van Dijk being injured isn't the biggest issue, but they can't keep relying on it. January was their chance to get a refresher in. If they get a decent level, say a Militao even, to get in on loan, natural centre back, not made of glass, then I think it's just a refresher. They don't need to change everything. But just something, just a little boost, almost like what City did with Ruben Diaz. It didn't immediately work, but after the first couple games, he's been the best centre back. He's been probably one of the best. I'd argue being the best centre back in the league this season.
Look at the effect Laporte had on that Centurions team. I think Militao is a really interesting shout because he's a lot like a Joe Gomez, but one that actually tackles players. But yeah, I'm very agreed with you. No signings for Liverpool though, so it'll be interesting to see if they can get out of this rut. Right, next on the agenda is our Premier League team of the season so far. Let's go back. Put out a tweet in the week, and their team really annoyed me. So I decided we needed.
I think it annoyed a lot of people. So I mean, I think that was needed in a discussion.
So our collective brain power come together and created ours. I got outvoted far too many times for my liking.
Once would have been far too many times for your liking, let's be honest.
Crime on.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. But just because we are more clever.
But we did come to some
sort of agreement. So there's that.
An agreement. So we'll just go through it page by page, talking about a few of the players and a few that might have missed out. In goal is Martinez. He's just been consistent for Villa, isn't he? First full season,
and especially with his first. I was going to say with his first full season, it's just he's massively stepped up, showing his ability, and I feel like he needs to have a place. And even when he's not had much to do, he's done it. So he's a mainstay for me, or not a mainstay, but he's a guarantee for me.
Our back three, we've gone with the back three of John Stones, Fabinho, and Diaz. Originally, we left out Stones, but Callum was not insistent, but but
I think it was who is it that he replaced? I can't remember.
Wesley
Fofana.
Fofana, who's been brilliant for Leicester this year.
For Leicester.
You was pretty hot on John Stones, though.
Yeah. I think if it's a case of like if he was left out, then I think it would be like I wouldn't be distraught, but I do think that he deserves it out of all the other options we had. And especially in recent form as well. His recent form, he's been on fire for City. Was it quite a few clean sheets on coming as well?
Obviously he's added goals to his game now as well. So.
They did have that little dip of form, but they seem to be on
They
on
seem to
what,
be back to being them
yeah.
again.
I mean,
And I think,
minus the game today against Cheltenham, they only scraped a win, but
yeah.
There's
but yeah, no, I was adamant that Stones deserves at least a shout to
there's
be on the team.
yeah, there's no footballer who's been written off more times than John Stones, and it's quite the recovery from him. He's now scoring goals. He's partnership with Diaz, who's also in there, who should be in everyone's.
Dan loves him.
Me and Dan
Mm,
were in Grimars, the fateful
See his
England-Netherlands
wonderful
game, but
defending.
I've stood by John Stones, so to see him produce has been rather happy moment for me. Our wing backs are Robertson and Cancelo. Cancelo is very simple, despite him being shoved all over the place. He's really, really impressed for City this season.
and I think I'll just say, in general, him now playing as a wing back / a number 10 just astounds me. That would take
Guardiola.
so much concentration, so much discipline, so much ability. In I'd say dumbed down terms, he's just got a massive. You need a massive football brain to do that. Really, you just got such a good knowledge of the game to actually not just master that. Obviously, Pep's done a very good job of actually being able to get him into that position, but it just seems so difficult to me. When I've seen a few graphics of it is him saying wing back / number 10, or was right back / number 10. I thought it was a typo. I didn't think it was true. And then I'd watched a couple City games since, and I'd been proved wrong. I was astounded. So I feel like he has to be in there for that reason alone.
We're now going to come on to the one that I was outvoted on twice. I originally had Kieran Tierney in here due to how much you saw against Palace, how much Tierney actually changes the side. Arsenal team, I think, has been at the forefront. I think he's been the difference for Arsenal. And then I put in Ben Chilwell due to that he's been Chelsea's best player in an attacking sense and a defensive sense. But you two thought differently, and we've ended up with Andy Robertson on the left. I'm
I don't think
not going to
agree
be the
with
only
it.
one that says this. Why?
He's from watching Liverpool. I know you said you haven't watched too much of Liverpool this season. That's why I haven't been able to comment too much on Stones. I haven't watched too much on him, and obviously I'm not his biggest fan anyway. But from what I've seen Liverpool this season, their defence hasn't been their biggest issue in the world. They've been quite good defence. Obviously, they've had their moments, but that's mainly through the centre-back roles. It's mainly through the injuries and having to rotate constantly, but having to play, say, Reece Williams at centre-back, Nat Phillips, having to stick Jordan Henderson at centre-back. Because they haven't been conceding loads either. They just haven't been conceding loads. And even when they've been at their lowest, obviously... I wouldn't disregard the last few games because he's been okay. Then even he's been probably arguably their best player of the season if you look at it consistently throughout the season. Obviously, if Jota was fit, I'd probably say him. But Robertson, for just consistency alone, and you can still see his ability there even when they're not playing well. Because Chilwell is in a Chelsea defence. It shone at the beginning of the season, but it shot a little more. It's more in hot flashes because they can see it. They were 3-0 down at like West Brom. That they've just not been sure. He's been very good, but I don't think you can put him in above it. And with Tierney, I know he's a difference maker, but I wouldn't put him in that. I wouldn't put him in the team purely just because he improves Arsenal. It doesn't make him the best left back this season. It makes him probably the best Arsenal player this season, but it doesn't make him the best left back. I can see the argument for it, but I agree with it. Defensive effectiveness alone, I would have to say Robertson all day.
Yeah, I mean, I do. As I said, I do understand. Why people say that Tierney could probably be, in front of. But yeah, I pretty much just agree with everything that Dan said. Like Robertson's been consistent, not just this season, but the past few seasons now. From going to like where he was, Hull City or something, and he's won the Champions League with Liverpool, won the Premier League with them, and this season. I mean, yeah, as you said earlier, it's not been amazing, but yeah, as Dan said, it hasn't been like they've been getting, thrashed 3 or 4-0.
Yeah, they have. Obviously, take Aston Villa out of it. Take Aston Villa out of it. That's just a freak result. I'd say to put that down. I'd put that down to a freak result.
But I think with Tierney, with Arsenal in general, they can either scrape by a game or they get thrashed. In terms of when they lose.
Yeah, and
when they lose, they either just lose or they've lost within like the first 5 minutes of them kicking the ball.
Yeah, like I couldn't put them in. I couldn't put him in for like his Arsenal's defensive reputation this season alone. I couldn't put him in. Just that's always in the back of my mind.
To tell the difference between who's been superb in a bad team and who's been superb sometimes, and I think maybe this should be Chilwell. The one thing I would say about Robertson is whilst Trent has clearly declined without Virgil van Dijk and Gomez, Robertson hasn't appeared to, and he hasn't crossed 22 times in a game.
He's shown no different ability, he's stuck to his game. He's not just Robertson. He's just a better player, and I think he's proven it.
Yeah,
on to the next player anyway.
Yeah, moving into midfield.
Yeah, midfield.
We're waiting, mate. We're waiting.
Moving into midfield, Anguissa has made it from Fulham. Jack Grealish has joined him, as has Bruno Fernandes. No Kevin De Bruyne. Is that the correct decision from us?
I know I said Arsenal, and I was saying I'll backtrack on myself a little bit on like effectiveness into like on a team, but Anguissa, he has made a massive difference for Fulham, but it's not just that he stood out. He's not just stood out in a bad team. He stood out against the best opposition in the league.
Yes.
Whenever he's played this season, he's performed consistently. From what Fulham games I have seen and what reviews I have seen of him, he's just been consistently good against everyone. And I think his stats for back him up, and I think he has a fair place in there. I think obviously De Bruyne. It's difficult not putting him in, but
I don't think De Bruyne's been consistent.
He's obviously come
when I was watching. I was watching the Chelsea City game, and I think he was definitely. I think he was the man of the match in that game. But he hasn't been at the level that he's usually at. Because last season, the season before, you could argue he was obviously one of the best in the league, I'd say. But I don't know how to say it. It just hasn't been, that he hasn't been at the level that you expect him to play at. I
think that may be down to his standards alone, but
I'm not saying he's just completely turned to like.
He's not gone to crap.
I'm not saying he's completely just like become like
he's not got considerably worse. It's just obviously set levels so high that it's just so hard to match.
Honestly, I think Grealish and Fernandes, to me, they're two no-brainers. They're two no-brainers.
Yeah.
Bruno Fernandes, he's coming to this United team. And people say that all he scores are penalties, but
arguably penalties is one of the more difficult things stay composed for like that level of let's say composure, and to keep that consistently, and obviously doing the techniques that he does, it's admirable, and I think I have to say the same about that's the argument about people saying Ronaldo scores a lot of penalties. It doesn't make him any less of a player, does it? It doesn't make him any less of a player.
In terms of the tactic,
because I used to not like Fernandes, but because I was like, oh no, all he scores is penalties and all that.
Yeah, I have changed my
I
mind on him as
can't
well. I'll
remember
admit
what
that.
game it was, but I watched one of his games, and it's just the way he moves. You know, he moves about the pitch. He goes about, you know, looking to looking to
Yeah,
put the pass through, and also looking for the ball as well. You know, he's an incredible attacking player, and yeah, honestly, I'd like that moment. I'd like, and that was the moment. You know, I was like, Fernandes is a world class player. Right?
He's certainly near
World
that.
class.
He's certainly
Yeah,
near that bracket. I think in terms of
Thank you.
in terms of attacking effectiveness, there isn't a player on the planet more effective than Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, the way he drives with the ball, the way he links perfectly with the likes of Pogba and these players, and he's not very pacey, he's not very strong, he's not very skillful, but he's still everything in between, and
incredibly effective.
every game, whether he's dropping a poor game and losing balls like that, he will create chances for you. He's
inevitable.
He's a footballer. Yeah, he's inevitable. He's someone everyone wants, and we haven't had a player much to that effectiveness in a long time, possibly with the exception of Hazard. So yeah, I have nothing to say.
Yeah, I can't remember many other players like that. I think that's what's put him above Kevin De Bruyne in the team of the season so far. I think that's probably the difference.
Jack Grealish is the obvious one for me.
Yeah, definitely. Grealish was also
ridiculous.
The impact he's had for Aston Villa this year, yeah, it's incredible. Like, you know, I've always liked Jack Grealish.
Not many people have.
I
haven't always been his biggest fan, but
I've genuinely not. When I've looked at him, I haven't always been like, he's incredible, he's amazing, but like,
I never thought he was to this standard. I'll admit he was at this standard.
Yeah, me neither.
But I thought he could. I thought that he could like come up to like a level. Like, obviously I didn't expect him to be like this. Obviously I wouldn't expect Villa to be this high on the table. If you just said to me Villa are where they are in the league about this time last year, I would have smacked you in the face and told you just to stay off the beer. But no, honestly, it's incredible, and I think Jack Grealish has played he's been integral to that Villa team.
He's a player, and the best way I can put it is he's a player most international teams would build their team around. He's got that much technique and ability in finding space, in his actual technique, in how he produces the passes. You only have to listen to Pep wax lyrical about him and Klopp and all these. He is so good, and the reason people will call him a diver is because how often he gets fouled, because he is they can't stop him otherwise.
Hazard as well. Hazard just gets fouled a lot as well, doesn't
he? Yeah. He's a bit like that, and he's also another one. He's somewhat inevitable as well. I guess he will still make a difference. He will always make a difference to a game, and I have no doubt in that.
Grealish is inevitable in his good performances. Now, for someone who is streaky, you two went for Heung-min Son, which
yes, we get it.
I can understand. Of course, I can, but
your agenda is going over your fact.
No, not so much agenda. I don't.
Yes, it's agenda.
For me, I think this is just my evaluation of him as a footballer more than him this season. So I can see why he's in there. I think he's quite a simple footballer in terms of sees space, runs into space. He can finish with both feet, which is why he's more clinical. He's in a system that suits him. So he's obviously going to do well. I'm not sure on his actual overall technique.
You wouldn't say he's a world class player overall, and I can
I
agree
think the
with you.
comparisons. I think that's what killed it for me. People calling him world class, and he's not for me as a footballer.
But
the comparisons
thing is,
to Salah pathetic. Then go quite frankly.
The thing is though, like with the attacking players, their main job, obviously it's not their only job, but their main job is to score goals, and that's what Son's been doing, as well as setting them up as well. And it's not like they've only been setting up the odd goal around every couple of matches. They've generally been consistent with Harry Kane. Him and Harry Kane.
Yeah, that partnership's been unbelievable.
They've both been consistently, you know, getting them goals, you know, assisting for each other and working together. And you know, I get that. You know, I would agree with you on the part. You know, I wouldn't say Son is world class, but
he's on the brink.
Come on, like
his numbers
season that. They've been pretty
world class is an opinion.
Yeah, his
subjective.
His output is insane. It's insane. He's incredibly clinical. I do get he's streaky. I think majority of people know that because you see, I think there's a graph. He's literally, it's like a heartbeat. It looks like a heartbeat almost.
Yeah.
It looks like a heartbeat of me after I've done a 1K running. He's not been as streaky. I know he's had the odd game where he's not performed, but I mean he's human.
That means it's coming.
That's been less streaky. That's been more.
Reece,
yeah.
Say so?
He said it means it's coming. But I mean, look at him now. He's still having a very similar output to then. So
I think people will talk to me about the XG since 2016. There's a stat out there that he's outperforming his expected goals.
You don't use XG on its own.
Wait,
you know this, Reece.
Wait for me, Callum. Wait for me. His XG since 2016 is plus 24. Harry Kane is plus 12. This is what is it? 4 seasons. It's another thing that adds to this, and I'm not sure. For example, if we looked at other attackers that could have gone in here, Rashford.
You're using XG without any other statistics.
I get what he means, one thing I will disagree with is how can you say it's not sustainable when he's done it for 4 seasons?
Yeah.
How can you say that? That is not that. That is clearly sustainable because he's got 100 goals in 200 something appearances and a decent amount of assists too in that. And he's, as I said, as you said, he's been way more clinical than he should be in the last 4 years. There is no, you can't say that isn't sustainable. It's just, it clearly is. He would be the best player on the planet if he could. But
don't get me wrong, Heung-min Son's a very good player, and he's most definitely a world-class dribbler, and probably on that list for world-class finishing. But when we look at these other footballers,
he deserves team with
Son. Yeah, I know. That's why I'm happy to put him in. But for me, I think Son. The best way I can put it is, Salah and Rashford could play for Barcelona. I don't think Son could. This is in terms of. I would, and I know this is controversial, I'd put Jack Grealish above Heung-min Son as a footballer.
No, I can agree with that. To be fair, we get sidetracked by Heung-min Son. Who's the next?
And up top is obviously Harry Kane. It was never going to be anyone else. In place of Son, though, I would have had Rashford. But yeah. Talking about Heung-min Son and Harry Kane, Spurs. Nearly 18 months since Jose Mourinho took charge. Dan, I feel you'd be repeating yourself a bit with effective football and all that.
Football.
So I'm going to leave this one to Callum, and you just jump in when you feel necessary. Callum, are Tottenham in a better place with Jose Mourinho? Do you think?
Right. Well, I've got a little one for the pub quiz, in case. With both Pochettino and Jose Mourinho's first games, they were both wins away at West Ham.
I remember both of them
so
weirdly
you
well as well.
If it ever comes to the pub quiz, thank me for it. But yeah. But so I was having a look at some of the the stats between Jose and Poch. So with this, I used the total of Poch's games versus the total of Jose's games. Now Pochettino had 293 games for Spurs, right? And Jose's at 66. So there's obviously quite a large difference between games, and
it's quite difficult to compare.
Pochettino's first starting 11, it was Lloris, Rose, Dyer, Kabul, Norton, Capu, Bentaleb, Ericsson, Lamella, Lennon, and Adebayor. That was his first starting lineup.
I think it's fair to say Spurs are in a better place than when Poch took over.
Players, yeah. Well, the thing is the thing is Pochettino has brought in most of these players. He brought in most of the players that he had in the squad now, arguably because some of them are still Mourinho signings. But yeah, but anyway,
we talk about. Sorry, go on. I'll let you
anyway, so what I was looking, at all the win percentages and all that, goals for, goals against, because being a little bit nerdy. So if you're not into the statistics, just cover your ears for a couple seconds. Jose has a 54.5% win percentage. Potts just edges it with 54.6. But with Jose Mourinho, so 15 draws compared to Poch's 60. Yeah. So that with Jose, there's 22.7% draws, and with Poch's 20.5, and with Poch it's 73 losses, and also with Jose Mourinho, which I find interesting, he's also had 15 losses. So I think that could be down to the fact that Jose Mourinho, we all know the famous Jose Mourinho, park the bus, score a goal, park the bus. And
there's no doubt that that's what they've been doing this year.
Yeah. I think that is what's costing them, 3 points instead of 1. So yeah. So Jose has a fair bit more goals per game, coming at 2.03 compared to Poch's 1.91. So Poch's conceded a little bit less, with 1.1 goals conceded per game compared to Jose's 1.21. So you can obviously see with this with both teams, with both managers, there was obviously different.
I think the fair assumption was that both have created fairly good defensive units.
Yeah.
They're not like world beaters. They're not gonna. I'd say they would have set the world alight at times this season, but they're not teams to set the world alight or play incredible football. They're just teams that will grind out and get you results.
But the issue is with Jose Mourinho, he grinds out. He tries to drag out and grind out games too early. So as I've said, they get one goal and they go and sit back. When I think that with any team, they should be pushing it to at least 2-0. So it gives them sort of that comfortable lead. And then if they want to sit back...
I think the debate is whether the team is actually good enough in order to do that. And I think there's obviously Spurs... You can expect Spurs to be busy in the next week in the market. I think they're interested in Sabitzer from Leipzig, who's a midfielder. But I think the squad's good enough to do more than that. I think there's enough to dominate games in the middle with Lo Celso, with Sissoko, with Ndombele, who's been unbelievable. He's such a good footballer.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Højbjerg,
I'm just taking a moment to mention about his goal. I was just appreciation for his goal the other day, which was just
Which he definitely meant, by
insane.
the way. I don't think he's meant for it.
Oh yeah,
He's definitely not gone to it and gone, I'm going to put this in the top corner, no one's going to touch it, it's going to fly in, it's going to be the best goal of my life.
Yeah.
But I think he's done it with that kind of intention.
So you know, I believe with Jose Mourinho, he should be looking to get, you know, a couple goals in, because he's got the quality up top to, you know, not to be winning 2-0, 3-0 instead of 1-0. And if they do, you know, if the other team brings one back, you know, I do believe they have the quality to, you know, bring it, you know, to get another
Kick
one and bring the game to bed. But I also think defensively, I think when they're 1-0 up, I think they're a little bit more on edge. And so that's why they're probably more likely to make mistakes, which is why they've been, you know, letting in late equalisers every now and then, or a little bit more often than I think they'd like to. But I think Jose he needs to, you know, sort of change
games off.
You know, he needs, like he used to, like the way like, you know, the old Jose Mourinho. Like, you look at them, you
have some cutting edge, not risking games.
Like when you used to play a Jose Mourinho team, you'd go in there bricking it. But
you'd be cheating yourself.
Yeah, but I think the defence needs to sort of, you know, understand that if that's what the manager wants, then you have to deliver that for the manager.
They're not.
They're
still good enough. They are good enough to do it, because they have managed to, you know, successfully, you know.
Yeah, they picked up a fair few clean sheets, but obviously they haven't. When they're not killing games off, because it's clearly not going to happen, they need to. Then there's so many laps in concentration from. That's why obviously they drew against Fulham. That I get what you mean, as in they do have the quality to kill a game off, but it's unlike their team this season. I believe they can, but I just don't think that they have. They have the players, they have the cutting edge, they do have the ability, but I just don't think that they've been set up. It's trained into their brain that we need to grind out this result, not attack a game. I think of Mourinho more this season. He's more afraid to attack. He's more afraid to kill the game off. He just wants to get a result, stick with it. And obviously, previous Mourinho, you'd be a bit more worried about facing them. Whereas this season, it's. You see Tottenham playing the team, you think, oh, you fancy our chances here.
I think how that's proved that they're not as much a stronger defensive unit as they were when Poch left. They don't have the defensive quality to shut down games yet. They're not that good. I think you look at his Chelsea side that did that, and his Inter side that did that. Let's look at his Chelsea back four: Carvalho, Terry. You get the idea. Do you know what I mean? In terms of, those are such strong, talented individuals, and I'm not sure they have the balance yet. It's 2021. Yeah. Eric Dyer's still a thing.
I know he's stepped up.
Well, I think with Tottenham I think if they start winning any silverware, I think that's the only thing that's missing with them. I think if I was a fan looking at Spurs, I wouldn't mind how they were right now if they're winning silverware.
For me, as a whole, is that Spurs are in a better place, but
the team's better than them.
Basically, they're in a better place a year ago. They've employed Mourinho to be the winner, to bring them trophies. They're obviously in the Carabao Cup final, but they are still Spursy. They're in a better place, but right now, Spurs are still Spurs. And as Chiellini said, it is the history of the Tottenham. Let's move on, and I'm sure Cal cannot wait for this one.
Pain. Champagne without the sham.
They're having a West London meltdown, and it's certainly not over at Fulham. Chelsea are in a bit of a crisis, and I'm actually not going to start with you two. I'm going to go on a bit of a rant of myself, thanks to a comment from Frank Lampard. I've quoted this word for word, so I'm not jumping on it. Chelsea is not a club ready to compete at the minute. We don't have that bloke that can come in and score 20 goals and 20 assists. What was the 200 million quid for in the summer then, Frank? What was he doing? It could have been. It could have been.
Was it for bands? Was it for bands?
It could have been so much better spent, but no. You got the big names, which is fine. But you've quite clearly signed Timo Werner. I don't think Kai Havertz was a Lampard signing, but he's still one of the best teenagers in world football. Ben Chilwell was quite a big name, and all these big names. Fine. Werner, from watching him, is quite a direct, simple footballer. Runs into the space. He's not going to get the same spaces he did in the Bundesliga, coming in from the left as an inside forward on the left wing in the Premier League. Bundesliga play high lines. It's like common sense. But no, you've put him on the wing and kept him on the wing. And now you're putting him in a position where he has to come off the bench and get a goal. He's coming into positions where he needs a goal, and it almost makes it worse. Let's move on to Kai Havertz, who performed sensationally as a false number 9 for Leverkusen last season. It was unbelievable, but he did drift in and out of games. So, you've played him as a number 8 in a 4-3-3 where you can't disappear. Good one, Frank. Do I have to go on about Kovacic as a DM?
Breathe.
I'm calm.
Breathe. You are not calm.
Right. That's why I'm not speaking.
Losing.
That's why I'm not going on about Kovacic as a DM. Moving on to Kante. Now, he's not performed at his best this season. So, let's look at Kante. Thrived under a pivot at Leicester. Thrived and won a World Cup in a pivot for France. Thrived under a pivot with Conte. Not so much thrived, but played better in a pivot with Sarri. Can someone please tell me why Kante might not be performing as a lone 6? He's not in a pivot.
Breathe. As I said, breathe.
I mean, it's
deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth.
Play footballers to their strengths, Frank, and they might perform. It's not this simple, and I could go into a number of things. He's man management over Hudson-Odoi, Kepa, Jorginho, Tomori, Pulisic at the start of his career. So many is failing. His tactics against someone like Man City was pathetic. It's just like, what are you doing? Why are they playing 4-3-3?
What are you doing?
Anyway, I need to breathe.
It's going to be like an AFTV theme for Reece. Reece is just going to be troops. He's going to be that annoyed. He's going to look like he wants to murder someone. He's going to have that flame popping out.
I don't even support Chelsea in this stressing me out.
Sure? Are you sure?
Because I haven't got that annoyed. You may not show me.
I haven't.
You know, with my hot take. So this is where that comes in. So with obviously, I was saying with Werner, something about Lampard's tactics. That the formation, that is the thing that is holding us back. You need to play a formation that players can play to their strengths. If not, you're going to end up like this. You're not going to be winning every game, and if you do, it's going to be a scrape because players don't know what they're doing. I do think partially that they should be trying to, fit into the system because after all, they are professional footballers. But again, some of them won't want to. There will be egos, and some of them will not want to. I
don't think it's a matter of not trying with this Chelsea team. I think Mount stands out because he is the
Mount
try hard, but if you don't fit, you don't fit.
Yeah, but I was looking the other day, and none of them seemed to give a shit. I was looking the other day at the match, none of them seemed to give a shit. So, that's what I saw.
I'd say it's less. I would say it's less down to caring. I'd say it's more down to being confused as to what he's doing. Well, I'd say he's a box to box midfielder.
Yeah. So do you think the Lampard would shoot with like a managerial advisor then? Would he shoot with a managerial advisor that is not Jody Morris? Because what role do you think that Jody Morris has in the football club?
No
I,
idea.
I don't see any benefit going on.
If you're not working.
But like, because I saw something that was like, they might bring in Avram Grant as like a managerial advisor. Or something. No, I was like not Avram Grant, but like I could see like if they got in like a good figure, like that could really help Lampard because I do get Lampard's still
thing
quite
is,
new
it's a
into
bit
his
like a
career.
Grim Reaper, though, isn't it? He's just behind him because he could easily take that job. Tuchel becoming available as a manager has not helped Lampard's case. The fact that
No.
Pulisic has
But anyway,
worked with Tuchel does not
Yeah.
help his case.
But anyway,
If we wrote down this squad on a piece of paper, sorry, Cal, sorry. If we wrote down this squad on a piece of paper, 4-3-3 wouldn't beat any of our guesses, and I think that's what
No.
people are getting irritated about.
No,
These are small, obvious things.
Bringing me back. Yeah, so that's bringing me back to like when I was talking about Werner earlier in the show. So with Werner, you know, as I said, I think that he can do whatever Lampard can do whatever the hell he wants with the rest of them, but not whatever the hell he wants, but obviously. But Werner needs like Giroud with him, like you know, still plays out on the wings, but you can't have. I don't think you can have Werner out there on his own, especially in the Premier League. And he needs, as I said, Giroud. He may not be one of the best in the world, but he has been consistent season after season. He continues to prove that he can still perform at the level he is at. And he's an incredible player. He can score with his head. He can score with his feet. Probably score with his arse as well. And if someone hits the crossbar, like the first person, like if I was in a game situation and I hit the crossbar, the first person I think that's going to get to that is Olivier Giroud because
he's going to get on the end.
He has. I get that. He's a poacher as well, and that is something that can be vital in a league as well. We know. I don't. It's not only because Werner can help set up Giroud, or Giroud could probably help Werner. But I think if Werner like misses, then I know that Giroud will be there to pick off the scraps. And if you get what I mean, like then probably save Werner from a bit of embarrassment as well. If you get what I mean, though.
Yeah. Giroud's the typical grab one on the goal line type of striker. I think the big thing with Chelsea is when you look at the stats, they haven't got the right combinations there. The wings, they get a lot of good crosses in the box. They've got a lot of good wingers in Ziyech, in Hudson-Odoi, and in Pulisic. And I don't know who with them. Hudson-Odoi should probably get more minutes.
What, sorry?
Hudson-Odoi.
And that's brought an end to the Specialist in Failure podcast. Thank you for listening.
This is the only episode, right?
But yeah, there's problems everywhere for Chelsea. Mendy isn't what he was picked up to be in terms of the stats.
That's why I said, like, when you said to us to choose a Chelsea squad, that's what I said. I'd bring Kepa back because he's probably looking
brave.
He's probably looking at right now and saying this chance to come. Yeah, like he's probably looking at Mendy right now and being like, this could be my chance to get back into the team. He's probably raring to go. And to be fair, like obviously, like this season, he hasn't been up to what he should be. He hasn't represented his price tag this season. But last season, I was still pretty impressed. I was impressed with him. I still thought he was a pretty good goalkeeper.
I think it's a massive.
I hope that and I think for his price tag, he definitely should perform a lot better than he is. But I think hopefully he's looking at what Mendy's doing right now, and he's thinking to himself,
this is my in. This is my
chance. Prove that I am better. That I deserve that number one shirt. And that's starting going to be counted.
It's another it's another confidence issue for Chelsea, isn't it? It's another player lacking confidence, and in the Kepa Lampard kind of debacle, it's kind of become one of the Pogba, Mourinho, Diego Costa, Conte kind of things where it's either player goes or the manager goes. There's always one winner.
Yeah.
Lampard won the Kepa one. I'm not sure he can win the
Yeah.
Werner one. And the Ziyech one. And
no chance.
the Havertz one. And so on and so on.
And Kovacic, Kante, and
you know, Roman's probably
like I know
Roman's probably looking at it and going, why should I afford him more time when I didn't afford Scolari, Ancelotti, Hiddink? These chances.
Because I'm pretty sure, like Lampard, I think at Lampard it's past having a managerial advisor. I think he's got the lowest win percentage of any Chelsea manager in. I don't know how long. I think Premier League history, maybe even before that.
They've conceded 53 goals in 29 away games. That means technically, very nearly, Chelsea are conceding 2 a game away from home.
That's not Chelsea. That's just not Chelsea, is it?
Chilwell, Silva, Zuma, Rudiger, Tomori, Christensen, James, Azpilicueta. That's a very good defence. People, I think that defence is good enough to be keeping shutouts, as we saw when they went. I think it's 11 games unbeaten a few games back. But the thing with Chelsea is they are lacking in both boxes now, and that's where games are won and lost. And there's just no sign of Lampard's man management skills thus far dragging him out of this, and he seems insistent on.
And he's not adapting either. Like we can say manager advisor all you want, but it doesn't take an idiot it doesn't take an idiot to realise 4-3-3 isn't the way forward. Like you saw the amount of goals that they score when they play the 4-2-3-1. Maybe I think they were conceding a little bit more, but they were scoring more. And I know, obviously, I said I like effective football, but this isn't effective. I know I said like a 1-0, but I mean, when you're Chelsea and you're playing Fulham, you'd much rather to win 3-1, 4-1 than a 1-0, wouldn't you? You don't grind out a result against them. It's not good enough, and I think I mentioned it in the middle of your psychotic rant that like it was
mental.
Oh God, that Kovacic was played as a lone DM role.
Man City
4-3-3.
Not so much even the formation.
Man City, can we just not talk about that game? I really don't want to talk about that game.
In midfield, Kovacic, Mount. I'm missing someone. Kante. You've got 3 runners. You are running at Man City who can pick a pass better than anyone in the league and who are faster than anyone else in the league. Genius.
My first thought was Jorginho. I know he's not the best. I know he's not in the best books with a lot of Chelsea supporters. But I mean,
why is he playing Jorginho against Fulham, by the way?
Against them.
This is the thing. Jorginho looked set to leave in the summer, and suddenly he's using him constantly in big games in the Leicester and the Fulham games. He didn't need to play 60 minutes against Fulham. Fulham had 10 men for like 20 minutes of it. The Tomori decision is beyond me. When Silva come in at the start of the season, everyone went, "Oh, Silva Tomori, that's good," and he's been binned over. He's been binned over.
He's not had a single start.
It's been binned over Rudiger, who is like watching someone who wears clown shoes, and he's been binned over Christensen, who I reckon I could push over in a fight. It's
with your defense, how you defend, I wouldn't be surprised. With how you defend, I wouldn't be surprised if you took anyone down.
Well, I defend better than the three they've kept over Rudiger, over Tomori. And personally, I think it's these man management issues that define Lampard.
Yeah, I also think Zuma deserves a bit more respect because he's been one of the,
He's been good
when they
this
played
season.
well. When he played, I know it doesn't mean he's not been a bit disrespected because when they weren't on the run of not conceding, he was their outstanding player. He was the presence in. It's, but yeah, the Tomori decision is beyond me. I think Reece already said I was one of those people who thought. I think me and Reece had the conversation as soon as Thiago Silva was rumoured. He thought, Silva and Tomori, because Tomori, I don't see why. There's just no logic as to why he's not playing because he was integral to his Derby team. He played well when he came in last season. He was important to Frank Lampard's team last season. He obviously helped him. He's arguably helped Lampard a lot as a manager. He works tactically. He's obviously They work well together. They've been last few seasons. You've got to question whether that's stupidity or something's gone in the background. Because if there's nothing's gone on around in the background, there's leaks everywhere. I feel like something would have been leaked by now.
I think people.
I feel like it's just pure stupidity letting him out and pure stupid, like really, really bad really poor man management.
People said the same about Pulisic when Lampard first took the job. They said the same about Hudson-Odoi. They said the same about Kante, and it's a constant cycle.
Get his name right.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because Odoi, he's still not playing. He's not played enough. He's still not played enough than he should be because it seems like. Yes, Odoi. There you go. He seems like one that actually. I know. I don't like to say that players don't care, but when you see him on the pitch, he makes a difference. He does look like he's got more passion in his game.
It's energy.
It's that something else. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll leave the final words to you on Chelsea, Cal. What happens now? Where do they go from here? Or is it just set to be a bad season? Is Lampard right? Is this just going to be an average season for Chelsea?
Well, I mean, I hope not. I hope it's just something to motivate the players, and then I hope that there's sort of some sort of improvement. But I don't see it going down worse, but I don't see it getting any better from here this season. But that then suggests there should be a change of manager. It does leave the question: should Lampard go? But who do you bring in? I don't know who you bring in his place.
I mean, two candidates come to mind.
He's free in the summer.
Tuchel,
Jesse Marsh.
Yeah, exactly. Jesse Marsh is eyeing up this job and going, go on then. Because of the players he's worked with before, I can guarantee to you he's interested. But for me, for the German connection, for the football he plays, for all this, it has to be Thomas Tuchel.
Yeah. But it's just, I think Lampard does deserve a little bit more time because he's a young manager. At the end of the day, even if he hadn't played for Chelsea, he's still a young manager. And I think he still deserves, a little bit longer in this squad. But I say, end of this calendar year, if nothing's improved, I think we need to get something new in. I think
you're quite alone in that.
I think I may be, and I don't care.
Yeah, that's fair. Stick by your gun.
Because I still think that I know.
There's still the romance of it, isn't there? We have seen good things under Lampard. We can't pretend we haven't.
Yeah, but I think he needs to know what is best for his players, not what he wants for himself.
As my rant said, play their players to their strengths.
Yeah, definitely. That's my final thoughts of that. I think we have to at this point we just have to see the season out. And then we just have to restart again in next season because I don't see it getting any better, unfortunately. then that'd be great. But I don't see that happening.
I think
unless you
they
make a
might wait.
change of manager.
I think they might wait till the summer and see if Nagelsmann becomes available, for example. But I think due to loyalty, Lampard might stay. But he's walking on eggshells is, I think, the phrase I got. Very good to very good to discuss all of that for a very long time. God, we can talk football for a long time. Although that is why we did a podcast. That's why we did a podcast.
That's the point.
And that brings us to the end. Have you enjoyed it, you two?
It's been a pleasure. It's been quite fun taking the piss out of you and just talking football. So that's always.
That's our usual. That's how we usually spend our time together, anyway.
Yeah, so that's how anyway. Just we'll tell the car race and talk football. But no, it's been good and I've enjoyed it. So yeah.
Everything I've really wanted and all like having this planned for months is everything.
It's been a good first podcast, and let there be many more.
On to the second.
Thank you to everyone who has listened. Please do follow, subscribe, like, do everything you can to support us, because I'm certain we are going to get better. We are going to have better content.
We'll get better. We'll work better we'll work off each other better. I'm sure we'll get more clever. But I mean,
get more clever.
Yeah, more clever.
I'm not sure about
it's really smart way of putting that. But
thank you.
Well, we've got a good thing going here.
It's been the After Hours News Show, and this has been Specialist in Failure. Thank you.